There's an island you're not allowed to visit, not because it's owned by a government, but because no one dares claim it. For over 100 years, it's been off limits. Maps blur it. Boats avoid it. Even drones fail to get close. But recently, a satellite caught something moving, something alive. It was supposed to be a routine satellite pass, one of thousands. At the European Space Agency's Earth Observation Center in Frascati, Italy, technician Silvia Armand was monitoring daily weather and topographic feeds from Sentinel-2, a satellite designed to scan Earth's surface in high resolution. But that morning, something was wrong. One of the feeds returned distorted pixel data over a small section of the South Pacific, a stretch of ocean that should have been empty. Silvia zoomed in. There it was, a landmass, unmistakable, roughly 2.3 kilometers wide, circular, covered in dense vegetation. But there was no island there, not on modern maps, not on any historic ones, not even on Google Earth's archived data. And yet there it was, clear as day. Silvia ran the coordinates. Latitude -17.4627, longitude -148.041. Her terminal flashed red. Restricted Zone Level 3 lockdown. She wasn't supposed to see this. Before she could react, her screen went black. Security walked into the room 2 minutes later. She was told to go home. She was placed on unpaid leave the next day. And 2 days after that, her access badge was deactivated permanently, but not before she emailed one frame, one screenshot, to her personal laptop. Subject line: "Have you seen this before?" She sent it to a YouTuber she watched religiously, Chris Farin, a former military analyst turned independent researcher. Chris didn't reply for 3 days. When he did, the message was short. "Where did you get this? I've seen this shape before," but the island was erased from Cold War atlases. That word stuck with her. Erased. Silvia wasn't alone in her discovery. A classified French Navy report from 1987 mentioned an unauthorized magnetic anomaly in the same region. A Russian submersible had gone dark near those coordinates in 1991. A Japanese fishing crew had disappeared nearby in 2006. No distress call, no debris, nothing. All marked down as coincidence. But Chris had something no one else had. His grandfather's journals. A World War II navigator who had once flown over the Pacific on secret recon flights. In 1944. One entry read, "We were told to avoid Sector 17D at all costs. No fly zone, no questions. I saw land there once. Too round, too still, no clouds above it." The sketch next to the note matched Silvia's satellite image almost exactly. Over the next 2 months, Chris and Silvia worked together quietly. They found declassified documents, aerial photos from the 1950s showing cloud cover that never moved, an uncatalogued British expedition report from 1903, black sand beaches. No birds, no wind, something humming below the earth. And the strangest part? Multiple maps from different countries, printed in different decades, had a blank circle in the exact same spot. No name. No depth markers. No topography. Just white space. As if the island existed, but was intentionally omitted. Chris began calling it Null Island. Not the joke version. The coordinate 0N0E used in mapping bugs. A real place with a name that meant nothing, except it wasn't nothing. A second satellite pass picked up an infrared signature. Heat, consistent, concentrated, like a generator, or something breathing, just beneath the surface. Weren't the only ones watching. Emails started bouncing. Silvia's internet slowed to a crawl. Chris received a dead bird wrapped in a torn map with the words, "Stay away from the center." They weren't just onto something. They were trespassing on a secret no one wanted found, but curiosity has momentum. And Null Island had started speaking not in words, but in signs, in data that vanished, in birds that wouldn't fly over it, in clouds that refused to form, and in the echo of every old map that tried to pretend it wasn't there. Now, Chris and Sylvia were planning something that hadn't been done in over a century. They were going to get closer, rent a satellite, hire a vessel, track a signal, even if it meant breaking every rule in the book, because the question wasn't just what Null Island was. The question was, why did the world pretend it never existed? They knew they'd only have one chance. Chris arranged passage aboard a private research vessel under the guise of deep ocean acoustic studies. It wasn't cheap. Sylvia dipped into her retirement savings. Chris sold his vintage military patch collection. They didn't tell anyone where they were going, not even the captain. Coordinates were programmed into a GPS device and sealed in a weatherproof envelope, only to be opened at sea. Chris didn't trust digital systems anymore. After the map server glitch last week and the 2 corrupted hard drives, they'd gone full analog. They left from Tahiti under gray skies. It was only 970 kilometers to the anomaly. But by day 3, the ocean began to change. It started with silence. No birds, no flying fish, no radio chatter. The crew, a 5-person team from Sweden, noticed it first. One engineer joked, "It's like the ocean's holding its breath." At first, Chris tried to dismiss it, but then the temperature dropped by 6 degrees Celsius. Despite it being midday. That night, the compass began spinning. Sylvia stared at the water. It was black, not just dark, black like ink, absorbing every drop of moonlight. The stars above were visible, but they cast no reflection. She whispered, almost involuntarily, "This isn't just ocean. It's something else." On day 4, they crossed into the no-signal zone. Everything stopped working. The satellite phone, the sonar, the weather instruments, even the clocks. All 5 synchronized watches lost exactly 52 seconds between 3 o'clock and 3:01 a.m. Chris didn't tell anyone. But 52 was the same number he'd found stamped at the bottom corner of the oldest Cold War map of the region. Coincidence? He wasn't sure. Any more. At 4:37 p.m., someone finally saw it. Not land, not yet, but a cloud, perfectly still, floating just above the horizon, shaped like a ring, not moving, not changing, just waiting. Chris remembered the 1944 journal. Too round, too still. They were close. When the island finally came into view at sunrise the next day, everyone on board went silent. It was perfectly circular, surrounded by a narrow black sand beach. The jungle beyond was so densely green it looked fake, like velvet. Was no movement, no birds, no bugs, no wind. Even the water around the island was flat, completely still. But that wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was the structure. Near the center of the island stood a stone tower, no more than 4 meters tall. It looked ancient, but untouched by time. Smooth, seamless, with no visible entrance or markings. From the air, it looked like an eye. Sylvia felt something crawl down her spine the moment she saw it. The captain refused to anchor. Said the place made his skin itch. But Chris and Sylvia insisted. They took the dinghy and rowed toward shore. The moment they crossed the final 30 meters, everything changed. The sky dimmed. The air felt heavy. The sound of the ocean behind them disappeared, and the second Sylvia's foot touched the black sand, her vision blurred for half a second, like reality skipped a frame. They stood on an island that wasn't supposed to exist. That wasn't on any map. That had erased submarines, silenced birds, and fooled satellites. And now, They were walking toward the tower. Chris held the GPS. The screen said, "Time zone error. Coordinate undefined." He smiled nervously. "We're officially nowhere." They didn't notice the footprints behind them, or the fact that theirs were, being covered by something invisible. Within seconds, they didn't hear the faint low hum vibrating through the ground. They only noticed the circle of stones near the tower and the strange symbol carved into the dirt, a spiral, inside a triangle, surrounded by 7 small dots. Sylvia turned to Chris. "We've seen this before." She was right. It had appeared in her corrupted satellite frame, just for a moment, hidden inside a digital glitch. They weren't the first here, but they might be the last. The tower was taller up close. What looked like smooth stone from afar was, in fact, metal, some kind of dark, matte alloy that didn't reflect light. Sylvia ran her fingers across its surface. It was warm, humming gently, like it was alive. No markings, no seams, no doors. Just a structure that shouldn't be there, especially not in a place no one was supposed to find. Chris knelt by the base. He pulled out a handheld Geiger counter. The screen flickered, then shut off completely. Tried a compass, spinning. A simple thermometer. Read -18 degrees Celsius, even though the air felt tropical. "Nothing makes sense here," Sylvia whispered. Chris replied, "Maybe it's not supposed to." They circled the tower twice. The jungle behind them remained silent, too silent. Even the air felt cushioned, like sound refused to echo. They were in a space that absorbed everything. Then Sylvia saw something strange in the dirt, a small depression, circular, smooth, about the size of a human head. She brushed away some of the black sand and gasped. There was glass under the surface. Not broken glass, but something embedded. A lens? She cleared more sand and revealed a metal ring. Chris joined her. A hatch? They dug for nearly 10 minutes, uncovering a buried mechanism. A circular platform, flush with the earth, with a faint outline of a symbol they recognized. The spiral triangle. Sylvia touched the center. Nothing. Chris pressed both hands down. The ground clicked. Suddenly, the tower lit up. Not bright, but a dull glow along invisible seams. The whole thing began to pulse like a heartbeat. A soft tone emerged from within, 52 hertz, according to Chris's sound reader. Sylvia's eyes widened. "It's the same frequency as the whale." The sand beneath the hatch trembled, then shifted. A seam opened, revealing a narrow spiral staircase made of the same black alloy. It descended into total darkness. Chris turned on his flashlight, but it didn't help. The light beam just stopped 3 feet down, like it hit smoke. He looked at Sylvia. "Are we really doing this?" She nodded. "Whatever this is, they buried it, for a reason. And that means someone didn't want it found." Step by step, they descended into the unknown. The walls were smooth, perfectly curved. No signs of rust, no smell of decay. The deeper they went, the quieter everything became, until they reached the bottom. It wasn't a chamber. It was a bridge, a narrow metal platform suspended over what looked like a vast void. Below them, the floor pulsed with light patterns, like circuitry or neural pathways firing in rhythm. And at the end of the bridge stood something impossible. A chair, sleek, metallic, covered in geometric patterns, floating half an inch off the floor. It didn't look built. It looked grown. And behind it, embedded in the far wall, a massive glass panel, like a screen or viewing window. Chris approached. Suddenly, the glass lit up. A map appeared, not of the Earth as we know it, but of Earth with 7 red dots, blinking, in places we know well: Siberia, the Congo, the Australian outback, the Andes, Greenland, the Gobi Desert. And this island, Sylvia's heart raced. 7 points. 7 hidden sights. And at the center of them all was a circle, pulsating faintly. Chris whispered, "This isn't just a place. It's part of a system." Suddenly, the tower shook. A deep hum vibrated through the chamber. Lights flickered. A new symbol flashed on the screen. Awakened. They had activated something. And above them, back on the surface, the still air shifted. The jungle moved, and something opened its eyes. The jungle had been dead silent for days, but now it shivered. On the surface, the research ship's crew reported strange interference, not just on electronics, but in their minds. One technician said he kept hearing a low vibration, even when wearing noise-canceling headphones. Another woke up screaming, claiming he saw metal growing from the trees. Chris and Sylvia weren't answering the radio. Because far below the island, inside the tower's core, they were standing in front of something ancient. And aware. The screen in front of them flickered. 7 red dots blinked. Then 6. The dot marking Greenland faded. Gone. Did it just go offline? Sylvia asked. Chris stared at the screen. Or was it erased? Another symbol appeared. Delta 17 ready for transfer. Sylvia turned. The floating chair now glowed faintly, pulsing with a soft, rhythmic heartbeat. The hum in the air grew deeper, like something understood they were here. Chris pulled out a notebook filled with symbols he'd gathered from the 1903 expedition files and Cold War documents. One repeated over and over again. Delta 17. What is it? Sylvia asked. Not what, Chris said. Where? According to the oldest journal, written by a sailor who'd gone missing after mapping uncharted Pacific waters, Delta 17 was described as a point of ignition, the place where the others connected, a nexus, a gate. The screen zoomed in. A ring of energy, faint and blue, circled the island. It looked like a containment field. One now growing weaker. And then a recording began, not video. Not audio. But feeling. Chris gasped. He saw a war, but not of this earth. Cities underground, towers of crystal and steel, machines like whales, swimming through molten skies. And then silence, collapse, lockdown. Then this island, the tower, sealed, forgotten, by design. He fell to his knees. Sylvia remained standing, gripping the metal railing. She didn't see the past. She saw herself, wearing a uniform she didn't recognize, walking through a tower with curved walls, thousands of years old, speaking a language she couldn't name, but understood. She was part of it. She had always been. And now, it remembered her. The chair whispered to her, but not in words. It invited. She took a step forward. Chris shouted, "Wait. We don't know what it does." She paused. And that's when they heard the voice. Clear, simple, non-human. 7th anchor activated, awaiting final calibration. The screen now showed something new. A date, March 3rd, 2126. Exactly 100 years from the day the island had last been seen on any official record. Chris looked at Sylvia. This place was locked for 100 years, not because of danger, but because of a timer. Sylvia asked the only question that mattered. What happens when it reaches 0? Outside, the jungle shook again. But it wasn't the trees. It was the sky, the clouds above. The island parted into a spiral, not natural, not weather. Something else. The ship's crew scrambled. Birds appeared out of nowhere, thousands of them, circling the island but refusing to land. And beneath the waves, seismic readings spiked. Island was waking up. Chris and Sylvia had a choice. They could climb out and escape, or stay and finish what was started long before they were born. Sylvia sat in the chair. It lit up. Calibration confirmed. The screen blinked once more, this time showing coordinates, not just of this island, but of something orbiting Earth, something invisible to satellites. But watching Dot waiting, a whisper echoed in the chamber. The seventh has returned. The chair didn't move, but everything else did. The instant Sylvia sat, the hum in the tower reached a resonance that Chris could feel in his teeth. The lights in the chamber pulsed faster. The air pressure shifted, as if the room was breathing. With them now, and the screen, it no longer showed Earth, it showed space. A black field, littered with moving stars. But one cluster, about the size of a fist on the display, glowed gold, expanding, contracting, sending out rhythmic pulses, each one returning faster than the last dot. It was talking. Sylvia's lips parted slightly, as if listening. Then the voice came back. Seventh node confirmed. Return protocol initialized. Chris stepped back. Return? Return of what? Sylvia's eyes were wide. Not of what? She whispered. Of who? Across the globe, 6 other ancient sites, forgotten, buried, or scrubbed from records, began emitting low-frequency pulses. In a research station in the Arctic, a geophysicist stared at a glowing pillar of ice. In the Congo, a seismic monitor flatlined, then drew a perfect sine wave. And in the Gobi Desert, a buried tower, identical to the one on the island, began vibrating without being touched. The clouds above the jungle swirled faster. The screen inside the tower rotated, revealing a final piece of DAT, a countdown. 0 hours 0 minutes and 59 seconds, 0 hours 0 minutes and 58 seconds. Sylvia stood from the chair. Chris, we have to leave. Now. They ran up the spiral staircase, light flickering all around them, the structure now alive with sound and motion. As they reached the surface, the sky cracked with lightning, red lightning in a clear sky. They leapt into the dinghy and paddled furiously toward the ship, as the sand behind them began to rise, the island's edges folding inward, like it was retracting. By the time they reached the vessel, the tower was gone, the jungle gone, the island itself collapsing into itself, and then nothing. Flat water, no land, no ripple, no trace. On board the ship, no one spoke for a long time. Then, a ping on Chris's laptop. A data file had arrived. No sender. No to IMESTAMP. Just a file. Named Return Protocol Human Archive. Inside were star maps, blueprints, genetic data, and one simple message. You were not the first. You will not be the last. We never left. We were only waiting for someone to remember. They had triggered something old, not alien, not divine, not something ours. Something that was buried because humanity wasn't ready for it. Not a threat, but a memory. The island was never cursed. It was protected from us. Until now. In the months that followed, Chris and Sylvia disappeared from the public eye. No interviews. No posts, no leaks, but strange signals began appearing. Again, across frequencies the world had stopped monitoring. Coordinates written in books that had never been published. Dreams shared by people who had never met. And every one of them heard the same thing. The seventh has returned. The others are coming. Maybe we were never meant to step onto that island. Or maybe we were always meant to. But only once we stopped trying to own everything. The Earth has secrets. Some are sleeping. Some are waking up. Would you keep what you found a secret? Or tell the world? Drop your thoughts in the comments before someone else finds the 6th point. If this made your jaw drop, hit subscribe. This isn't the end. It's the start.